The first sign that something was wrong was the subtle dip of the aircraft's nose, a gentle, almost polite motion as if the plane were clearing its throat. Most passengers didn't notice it. They were dozing, or watching movies, or flipping through glossy magazines depicting destinations they wished they were already at. But a few looked up frowning. A second dip followed, sharper this time, accompanied by an odd shudder that rippled through the fuselage. Luggage in the overhead bins rattled. A baby began to cry. Then the sky outside turned from calm blue to an ugly swirling charcoal. A wall of storm clouds rose ahead like a towering mountain of smoke and electricity churning violently. The seatbelt sign dinged on. A few passengers exchanged uneasy glances. Turbulence this strong wasn't typical. Without warning, the plane lurched hard so violently that a flight attendant stumbled against a cart, sending plastic cups flying. Gasps echoed through the cabin. The aircraft pitched, alarms blaring from somewhere behind the locked cockpit door. Oxygen masks dropped with a hiss, bouncing gently like mocking puppets in front of terrified faces. A moment later, Captain Meyer himself stepped into the cabin. He wasn't a man prone to showing worry. His uniform was always crisp, his voice always steady, even during rough flights. But now his eyes were wide, his jaw tight. His normally immaculate hair was damp with sweat. He gripped the cabin intercom as if it were the only solid thing on the plane. We've lost primary controls, he announced, and though he spoke loudly, his voice trembled. A lightning strike has damaged multiple systems. Backup controls aren't responding. We're fighting to keep altitude. His words washed over the passengers like ice water. Some froze, some cried. Others whispered prayers or clutched each other's hands. Captain Meyer didn't sugarcoat it. If we don't regain stability soon, he said, we are, well. He hesitated, searching for a gentler phrasing, but none came. We're dead. For a moment, the entire cabin fell into horrified silence. The plane shuddered again, harder. A passenger screamed as a panel near the ceiling shook loose, dangling precariously. Another alarm blared from inside the cockpit, muffled but unmistakably urgent. The skies outside flashed with jagged veins of lightning, illuminating panic-stricken faces in harsh pulses of white. Across the aisle, a woman sat quietly, her hands folded neatly on her lap. She didn't look frightened. She didn't even look surprised. While others wept or shouted, she remained still, watching the captain with a calm so out of place it almost seemed unreal. She unbuckled her seatbelt, standing up slowly. She moved with deliberate precision, not rushed, not panicked, simply purposeful. The captain noticed her movement and blinked, confused and irritated. Ma'am. Sit down immediately, he ordered automatically. We're in the middle of an emergency. The woman met his eyes. Her expression was plain, but her gaze was sharp. I can help, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the terrified cabin like a bell. Something in the way she spoke, steady, calm, confident, made a few heads turn. Captain Meyer stared at her. Unless you're secretly hiding years of aeronautics engineering experience or divine intervention, he said. There's not much, She reached into the inside pocket of her jacket and pulled out an old pair of metal dog tags, scratched, dented, clearly well worn. She held them up to him. The name gleamed faintly in the flickering emergency lights. Commander Ava Rowan. The cabin fell silent again. But not from fear this time. Ava lowered the tags, her voice low but steady. A former fighter pilot, she said. United Earth Air Corps. I've flown through storms worse than this. I've handled complete electrical failures. And I've pulled aircraft out of spirals that should have killed us. Captain Meyer blinked, stunned. Recognition dawned on Him slowly, as if something long buried in memory had resurfaced. Asterisk? Ava Rowan? The Ghost Falcon? He whispered. Asterisk. A few passengers gasped, more from confusion than recognition. But the captain knew the name. Everyone in the aviation world did. She was a legend and ace pilot known for impossible recoveries, incredible reflexes, and missions that had become stories whispered in hangars long after she'd vanished from the public eye. "You disappeared," he said, almost accusingly. "I retired," Ava replied simply. She stepped closer to him, locking eyes. "But if you want this plane to make it out of this storm, Captain, you're going to need me." Asterisk. For a long moment, Captain Meyer simply stared at Ava Rowan as if she were a ghost materializing in the aisle. Lightning cracked outside the window, illuminating her calm expression in a stark flash. The cabin trembled again, a reminder that the storm wasn't pausing to let them have their dramatic revelation. But still the captain seemed unable to move. Asterisk LT, Commander Ava Rowan, he repeated, breathless. I thought you asterisk later, she said gently. Right now, you need help, and I can give it. Asterisk, her tone wasn't arrogant. It was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. The tone of someone who had been in dozens of life-or-death situations and learned long ago that panic only wastes precious seconds. Asterisk, another violent lurch threw several passengers sideways. A drink cart toppled, scattering cans across the aisle. Someone screamed. Captain Meyer was jolted out of his stupor. Asterisk, come with me, he said. Asterisk Ava followed him up the narrow aisle, one steady hand brushing the seatbacks for balance. People stared at her as she passed, some with desperate hope, others with confusion, and a few with the hollow, glassy look of people already accepting their fate. She met none of their eyes. Her attention was already ahead, already calculating. The cockpit door opened with a hiss and locked behind them. Inside, glowing screens flickered like dying candles. Warning lights strobed across the panels in frantic reds and oranges. The aircraft shook like an animal in pain. Asterisk the co-pilot, First Officer Ramirez, sat rigidly in her seat, hands white-knuckled on the controls. Sweat ran down her temples. When she saw Ava, her voice cracked. Captain, who? This is Lieutenant. Commander Rowan, Meyer said. Fighter pilot. She's asterisk. Ramirez's eyes widened. The Ghost Falcon? The one from asterisk. Yes, Meyer snapped, not unkindly. And she's going to help us. Asterisk Ava slid into the jump seat, but her eyes were already scanning everything. Instrument readings, control inputs, hydraulic pressures, electrical schematics. It was like watching someone absorb an entire library in seconds. Asterisk, what's still functional? She asked. Asterisk, very little, Meyer replied grimly. We lost primary electrical. Backup barely responds. Stabilizers are sluggish. Autopilot's dead. We're flying a brick with wings, asterisk, and trim? Asterisk, partially responsive but delayed by several seconds. Asterisk Ava nodded once. I can work. With that, asterisk Ramirez blinked. You can work with a 5-second delay? Asterisk Ava leaned forward, analyzing the attitude indicator, a little artificial horizon showing their pitch and roll. It was wobbling like a loose compass. Asterisk. When you've landed a damaged Sparrow X on a carrier deck during a typhoon, Ava said, 5 seconds feels generous. Asterisk. She unbuckled the jump seat belt and moved into the co-pilot's chair without waiting for permission. Her movements were smooth, efficient, and eerily calm. Meyer and Ramirez exchanged a glance that held 1,000 questions but no objections. Asterisk the plane lurched again, harder than before. The nose dropped, altitude bleeding rapidly. A shrill alarm blared. Stall, 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 Ava muttered. Shut up and press the silence button without looking. Her hands gripped the yoke. The controls felt heavy, sluggish, but she didn't flinch. She made a few tiny, deliberate adjustments. The plane didn't respond, or rather, it responded 10 seconds later, twitching upward like a puppet on strings. Asterisk controls are lagging even more now, Ramirez warned. Asterisk, I know, Ava said calmly. Captain, you need to reroute auxiliary power through the secondary bus and bypass the primary avionics altogether. That'll overload the bus, Meyer protested. Only if you do it wrong, she replied. Asterisk Meyer hesitated, but only for a second. He trusted her, or maybe he simply had no better option. He reached for the necessary switches and began rerouting the flow of power with shaking hands. Asterisk Ava monitored the trim wheels. She made another adjustment, anticipating the delay, calculating like a chess player thinking 10 moves ahead. The plane shuddered. Then, barely perceptibly, the nose lifted. Asterisk Ava nodded to herself. Good girl, she murmured to the aircraft. You still want to fly. Asterisk Ramirez stared at her. How are you staying so calm? Asterisk Ava didn't look away from the instruments. Because fear wastes time, and we don't have time. Asterisk Meyer finished the rerouting. Several screens blinked out, then flickered back alive with a different configuration. The aircraft stabilized a little, though tremors still rippled through the controls. Asterisk Ava exhaled slowly. Okay, we've got enough to work with, but we're not out, not even close. Her voice, steady and unshaken, filled the cockpit with something that had been missing since the storm hit. Hope. The storm outside raged like a living creature, howling, clawing, battering the plane with fists of wind and torrents of rain. Lightning slashed across the sky in jagged silver arcs, illuminating the cockpit in strobing flashes. Every part of the aircraft rattled, trembled, or groaned under the assault. It felt less like flying and more like trying to ride out the wrath of a furious giant. Asterisk. Ava Rowan's hands moved across the controls with calm precision. Asterisk the yoke fought her like a stubborn animal, lagging behind her movements, jerking in strange intervals. The trim wheels whined under her adjustments. Warning messages scrolled across multiple screens at once. Hydraulic fail. Stabilizer error. Autopilot disconnect. Control surface not responding. Asterisk Ramirez scanned the instrument stack, voice shaking. Altitude dropping 13,000, 12.8. 12.5 asterisk, we're in a downdraft, Ava said. Her tone stayed level, but her fingers tightened on the yoke. It's strong. The storm's pulling us in. Asterisk Meyer swallowed hard. Can you override it? Asterisk Ava didn't answer immediately. She stared at the altimeter, then the artificial horizon, then the vertical speed indicator. Numbers danced like frantic insects. The plane tilted again, nose dipping, left wing dropping dangerously. Asterisk Ava responded before Meyer or Ramirez could. One hand gripped the yoke, the other slid to the throttle, adjusting power with measured surgical finesse. Then she flicked several switches above her head, rerouting auxiliary hydraulics to the ailerons. The aircraft groaned under the sudden redistribution of pressure. Asterisk. Come on, sweetheart, Ava whispered to the plane. Work with me. The yoke stiffened, then jerked violently. Ava pulled. The yoke fought back. Ramirez reached instinctively to help, but Ava shook her head, never looking away from the controls. Asterisk. No, don't touch. You'll throw off the offset. Asterisk, the plane tilted harder. Storm winds slammed against the left side, pushing them into a rolling skid. Asterisk Meyer braced himself. We're banking too steep, asterisk, I know, Ava said. Her jaw clenchin. Asterisk, she forced the yoke right, countering the storm shove. Her movements were minuscule, barely a shift of her wrist, but they were perfect, controlled, focused. Focused. Every adjustment was calculated with the precision of a surgeon making the final incision. Asterisk still. The aircraft resisted. Asterisk. Damn it. Ava hissed. She's too heavy to respond quickly. The storm's got leverage. Asterisk. The plane bucked violently, dropping another 100 feet. Alarm bells shrieked again. Stall, terrain, pull up. Asterisk. Override the alarm. Ava snapped. I don't need it screaming at me. Ramirez silenced it with shaking fingers. The view ahead was chaos, swirling gray clouds and flashes of lightning. No horizon, no reference. Only instruments and trust in instinct. Asterisk. Ava took a deep breath. All right, time to fly like I'm in a 20-ton Sparrow. Asterisk. Meyer blinked. Ava, this thing weighs 200 tons. Asterisk. She smirked slightly. Then I'll fly it 10 times better. Asterisk. She pushed the nose down slightly, shocking the captain and Ramirez alike. Asterisk. What are you doing? Meyer asked. Asterisk. Breaking the downdraft's grip, Ava said. If I fight it head on, we stall. If I ride it long enough to get horizontal airflow, I can pull us out. Asterisk. That's insane, Ramirez whispered. It's physics, Ava corrected. The aircraft dipped sharply. Passengers in the cabin screamed. Meyer clenched his seat. Ramirez grabbed the edge of her display panel for balance. Ava remained steady as stone. Asterisk. The vertical speed indicator dropped faster. Faster, then stabilized. Ava seized the moment. Now, asterisk. She pulled the yoke. With a swift but measured force. Not too strong, not too weak. Just enough. Asterisk. The plane groaned, metal straining loudly, then slowly, painfully. The nose lifted. Up, up, come on. Ava muttered between teeth. Climb. Asterisk. The vertical speed indicator flickered upward, only a little. Only barely, but it was enough. Ramirez exhaled shakily. We're climbing. 200, 300 feet per minute. Asterisk. Meyer looked at Ava with something like awe. How did you know that would work? Asterisk. Ava didn't answer immediately. Her hands made tiny adjustments to maintain the fragile climb. Finally, she said, asterisk, because I've been here before. Different aircraft, different storm, same feeling in my gut. Asterisk. The aircraft pitched again as another gust slammed the fuselage. Ava corrected instantly. The delay in control response no longer seemed to matter. She anticipated every second of it, flying not the plane's present state, but its state 10 seconds in the future. Like she could see the flight path before it happened. Asterisk. Ramirez stared. It's like you're reading the storm. Asterisk. Ava didn't deny it. Her eyes were laser-focused, fierce, alive. We need to get out of this cloud bank. Captain, any emergency? Runways nearby? Asterisk. Meyer scanned the navigation display, which flickered but remained functional. There's a coastal strip airport, small, but it's something. Asterisk. Good, Ava said, because we're landing there. You can't land this plane on a strip that size, Ramirez said. Ava's next words were calm and terrifyingly certain. Asterisk. I'm not asking permission. Asterisk. She pushed the throttles forward slightly, guiding the aircraft toward the faint glimmer of coastline appearing through a break in the clouds. Asterisk. They weren't safe yet, not even close. Asterisk. But for the first time since the lightning strike, the plane was flying with purpose. Asterisk. And Ava Rowan was the one flying it. The storm began to thin like torn curtains as the aircraft punched through the last violent updraft. The sky ahead light and ashen, still turbulent, but no longer a churning monster threatening to swallow them whole. A distant glow marked the coastline beyond the storm wall, faint but unmistakable. It was hope, sketched in pale grays and muted blues. Ava exhaled a long, steady breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "We're through the worst of it," she said quietly. Ramirez slumped back, trembling. "I thought we were done." "I really did." "We still might be," Ava replied, her tone not unkind, just honest. "We're flying with crippled controls and partial hydraulics." "And that emergency strip." She checked the navigation display Meyer had pulled up. "It's short." "Very short." Meyer tapped the screen. "Says it's a retired military runway. Old, but reinforced." Ava allowed herself a tiny smile. "Reinforced is good. Military pilots and short runways are old friends." The aircraft jolted again, not from storm winds this time, but from its own internal injuries. A warning flashed. Hid pressure critical. Ramirez paled. "We're losing the secondary hydraulics." Ava's eyes narrowed. "Then we land now." She leaned forward, scanning the horizon. The coast appeared more clearly jagged cliffs, a stretch of dark water churning below, and at last a thin strip of runway perched perilously close to the waves. It looked impossibly small for a commercial airliner. Meyer whispered, "No way." Ava nodded once. "Oh, there's a way. But it's going to be rough." She adjusted the throttles, her hand steady despite the warning lights flickering everywhere. "Captain, prep the cabin for emergency landing, and tell them to brace well." Meyer hesitated, looking at her with a mixture of fear and admiration. "Ava, if we survive this, drinks are on me." She smirked. "Better make it two." He left to brief the passengers. Ava heard faint screams and cries through the cockpit door as he spoke, fear and hope mixing like oil and water. She forced herself to block them out. She had one job, one focus, one moment to get right. Ramirez steadied herself. "What do you need from me?" "Monitor our descent rate and call out deviations. I'll be improvising." The first officer swallowed and nodded. "Understood." Ava lowered the nose slightly. The runway grew larger still, far too small for comfort, but close enough to commit. Waves slammed against the rocks below. Wind buffeted the aircraft from the right side. "Crosswind," Ramirez warned. "I see it." Ava angled the nose slightly into the wind crabbing the aircraft, compensating for the push. Altitude, 1,000 feet. Ava tightened her grip on the yoke. "Deploy flaps." "As much as they'll allow." Ramirez tried. The flap indicator moved only halfway, then froze. A warning beeped. Ava swore under her breath but kept her tone even. "Half flaps. Fine. We'll come in hotter." "Speed's high," Ramirez warned. "It has to be. If we lose lift this close to the ground, we're done." The plane roared toward the coastline, engine straining, airframe shuddering. Ava made tiny corrections, anticipating every delayed response, adjusting before the plane even reacted. Her years in fighters, her impossible instincts, every battle she'd ever flown, it all led to this moment. 500 feet. The runway was just ahead now, too close, too fast, too narrow. Ava spoke softly, almost intimately, to the aircraft. "Come on, stay with me." 400. Ramirez's voice shook. 300. Ava cut the throttles. The aircraft began to sink faster. 200. Wind slammed them sideways. Ava countered instantly. The plane wobbled, then steadied. 100. Ava flared the nose gently, not too much. The plane's lagging response made every second feel like a century. 50. Asterisk, the wheels hit the runway hard, bam, then bounced, then slammed down again. Metal screeched. The cabin erupted in screams. Ava forced the yoke forward to keep the nose down, asterisk, reverse thrust. She barked. Asterisk, Ramirez deployed it only on one engine. The other refused. The plane veered left. Ava stomped the right rudder pedal. The aircraft protested, skidding, tires screaming, but obeying enough. Sparks flew. The end of the runway rushed toward them, too fast. Ava growled through teeth. Not today. She forced the remaining reverse thrust to maximum and held the yoke firm. The aircraft shuddered, slowed more, and finally stopped. Silence. Asterisk total. Absolute silence. Asterisk, then the passengers erupted into cheers, sobs, applause that shook the damaged fuselage. Captain Meyer rushed back into the cockpit, tears in his eyes. Asterisk, you did it, he said breathlessly. Asterisk, Ava unbuckled slowly. Her hands trembled now that the danger had passed. We did it, she corrected. Asterisk, as emergency crews raced toward the plane. Meyer looked at her with deep respect. Asterisk, you saved all of us, he said softly. Asterisk, Ava slipped her old dog tags back into her jacket pocket. Once a pilot, she murmured, always a pilot. Asterisk, she stood, walked down the aisle, and disappeared into the crowd of grateful passengers, quiet, unassuming, the Ghost Falcon returning to legend.